What is up, everyone? Mandy here. We are at Diversified Machine headquarters and we have the man himself, Dave Bailey. Dave, what are we going to go through today?
We're going to talk about when you should have your quick change rear checked and that's something you should do in the off season. Hey everyone, thanks for stopping in. Mandee Pauch said she wanted to stop in today and share some information with racers out there about some different things. So I decided we would talk about quick change rears. Obviously the racing season has just come to an end, and a lot of the questions that I get is, I've just completed my racing season, is there anything I should do to my quick change rear? And basically everything on a quick change rear would be similar to an engine, or really, in my opinion, any component that you put on your race car. You should really keep good documentation of it and keep lap counts. So a quick change rear, about every 1,000 laps, you get take a look inside, and that's under normal use. Obviously, if you get an old jingle or you hit the wall or you do something like that, then we have to look into stuff a little bit more. And no matter if it's a closed tube rear for a late model or modified, or a sprint car rear or a midget rear, they all have large inspection plugs on them. You do want to look in that large inspection plug weekly to monitor your ring and pinion life and so forth. But when we reach that 1,000 lap mark, we need to dig a little deeper. So at the 1,000 laps, that's when you're going to want to either take it upon yourself to take it apart if you feel qualified to do that, or find, in a lot of regions, there's an older guy that's been rebuilding rears forever. You can usually stumble across them, talk to your buddies at race, that sort of thing. Check with your local speed shop. A lot of the local speed shops out there do their own rebuilds. Or obviously you can send them to us. We are $99 for a sprint car rear plus parts, and $124 for a closed tube rear plus parts. Generally, if the rear is okay and doesn't really take anything, just the normal bearings and seals and O-rings that would get replaced every rebuild, it's about a $300 to $400 bill. Once we dig into it, if there's more there, the ring and pinion needs replaced, tubes are bent, something like that, or things are lapped out, then obviously that cost would go up. If you brought me your closed tube rear, we would take it apart. We would spin the tubes, spin the bells, make sure they're both within tolerance, so that everything's tracking the way it needs to. If they're out of tolerance, we press them apart. Once we press them apart, we spin the bell and the tube individually, see where they come in at. If they seem to be okay spun individually, we'll press it back together, and oftentimes that's all it takes for it to kind of go back in and fall into tolerance. If one or the other is way out, then obviously that's going to need replaced. Lower shafts should be replaced about every 1,800 laps, especially if you have big horsepower behind it. So that's something that we would obviously replace on the closed tube side of things, late model modified. Other than that, those are the things we pretty much do on the late model modified side. If you had a sprint car rear, we would take it apart. We check the front snout of the rear to make sure it's true and as close to being perfectly perpendicular to the axle as can be, because that affects your drive shaft, or excuse me, your drive line alignment, and make sure your torque ball remains free. We'll spin the axle, make sure it's within tolerance, and then again, the axle would be lap counted. Every 1,000 laps, your sprint car rear axle should be replaced. So, and if you're on a rough racetrack, you got to kind of count maybe your lap count twice for that night. Instead of saying 40 laps for that night count 80. Conversely, if you run a really slow little slick track, you know, maybe instead of counting for 40, you might be able to cheat it a little bit and only count for 20 laps that night. So those are the things. It's very critical though that does happen. Now's the time to do it. You take advantage of that. Everyone has all off season. I can't speak for other builders, but I will tell you, for us at this time of year, it's a 45 to 60 day turnaround on rear rebuilds. So we get backed up right now. We have a lot of new rears to build. Of course, we already have a bunch of rebuilds here, probably 50 to 60. So we get them apart, you know, we thoroughly clean everything, that sort of stuff. Something you want to do. And the other thing you really want to do is, before you take that rear to the guy to be rebuilt, if you're taking it somewhere or bringing it to us, get your quick change gears out, drain the oil out of it, get your bird cages off, get it so that when the guy's there and getting ready to dig into it, he doesn't have to take a bunch of accessories and that sort of stuff off that would impede his process. So those are some of the things that are required. All race teams should do that, especially at the end of the year when you have a free moment.
Thank you, everyone. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the newsletter down below, and come back next time.